The storm clouds bruised the sky in shades of purple and charcoal as if the heavens themselves mirrored the tension inside the small, aging house. Grace stood with her back pressed against the wall, her breath shallow, her palms damp. The scent of dust, old wood, and simmering disappointment filled the air, familiar, suffocating. Her father paced across the floorboards, each step creaking with irritation. "It's been decided," he muttered, more to soothe his own pride than to explain anything to her. "A woman who can't bear children brings nothing but trouble. You know how people talk. You know the shame you've brought us." Grace closed her eyes for a brief moment, letting her nails bite into her palms. She wanted to remind him that doctors weren't always right, that nature sometimes changed its mind, that her worth should not be measured in children she may or may not ever have. But her voice felt like a tiny flame in a windstorm, too fragile to survive. Her mother stood by the window, arms folded tightly across her chest, gaze fixed on the ground outside. She wasn't cruel by nature, but she had grown cold over the past months, exhausted by whispers from neighbors and the way her husband's temper darkened each evening. Grace watched her shoulders shake ever so slightly, as if her mother wanted to speak but couldn't muster the courage. Grace kept her voice steady. "I was your daughter before anyone judged me. That should matter more than what a town thinks." Her father's head snapped toward her. "Don't start with that." He jabbed a finger in the air. "The Martins returned you because you failed them. If you stay here, we all drown under their gossip. And I won't have that." A wind gust rattled the window frame. Grace swallowed the lump forming in her throat. She wasn't returned because she had failed. Her husband, ex-husband now, had treated her like a broodmare. When months passed without pregnancy, he had stopped looking at her as a woman and started looking at her as a broken tool. Grace opened her mouth to speak but froze when she heard the steady clop of hoofs outside. The sound was unusual this late in the evening, especially when the storm's breath grew heavier by the minute. Her father's expression eased. For the first time that night, he looked almost relieved. "He's early." Grace frowned, but before she could ask who, the door swung open with a forceful knock, then creaked inward. A tall silhouette filled the doorway. The man stepped inside with a slow, deliberate movement, as if mindful not to track too much mud across the floor. He removed his hat, shaking loose a few stray droplets of rain. Beneath the shadow of the brim, his eyes were gentle yet weighed down by years that had aged him faster than time alone could account for. Caleb Turner. Grace had seen him only in passing, driving his old wagon, always with one or two children climbing over his shoulders, the rest arguing and laughing behind him. People spoke often about the lonely cowboy with 5 kids, how he'd lost his wife to the brutal winter 2 years ago. They said he was decent, hard-working, and reserved to a fault. But she had never imagined he would walk into her home like this. "You're here earlier than expected," her father said, attempting to sound welcoming. Caleb nodded. "Storm's on its way. Figured we'd best finish this before the roads get worse." Grace stiffened. "Finish what?" Her father cleared his throat, avoiding her eyes. He gestured toward her with a casual flick of his hand, as if she were an object. "He's here for you." The words stung. Grace felt them slash through her heart before she could brace herself. Her mother closed her eyes, a silent flinch. No one, not even the woman who raised her, spoke up to soften the blow. Caleb, however, looked at her with a slowness that felt strangely respectful. He didn't stare. He didn't skim over her like he was evaluating a purchase. He looked at her as though she were a person standing in the middle of a painful moment. Grace steadied her voice. "Why are you here? What did they tell you?" Caleb exhaled, long and weary. "Your father came to me. Said you needed a home. Said you had nowhere else to go." Her father added quickly, "I've offered him a fair deal. A chance for you to be useful again." Useful. The word sparked something sharp inside her. Caleb's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond to her father's phrasing. Instead, he took a step toward her, leaving space so she wouldn't feel cornered. "I'm not here to buy a woman," he said quietly. "I'm here to give someone a place where they can breathe again." His eyes softened. "My children, they've been without a woman's presence since my wife passed. They miss having someone who listens, someone who cares. Not a replacement, just warmth in the house." Grace blinked, stunned. Of all the things he could have said, she hadn't expected honesty. "And what about you?" she managed to whisper. He looked down, thumb rubbing against the rim of his hat. "Loneliness is a heavy thing to carry. Harder when you've got 5 little ones who look to you for every answer." He hesitated. "I don't need more children. I only need someone who's willing to help me raise the ones I have." Her father nodded approvingly, as though Caleb's words sealed the deal. "You see, A better life than anything waiting for you here. Grace's breath shook. Is that what you think? That I'm a burden to unload? Neither parent answered, and their silence was louder than a confession. Caleb watched her with concern growing in his eyes. Grace, he said softly, I didn't agree to anything until now. And even now, this choice is yours. If you want to stay, I'll leave right now. Her father stiffened. We had an arrangement. Caleb turned to him, voice low but firm. I won't take someone against their will. I'm not buying a horse. I'm offering a home. That simple sentence, spoken calmly, without anger, shook the room more than the thunder outside. Grace felt her chest tighten painfully. She looked at her mother, hoping for one sign, one gesture, that she should stay. But her mother's eyes stayed downcast, dimmed by fear of the town's judgment. Grace realized then that she had been alone in this house long before anyone tried to trade her away. The storm's first heavy raindrops struck the roof, steady and insistent. Caleb stepped back, giving her room to breathe. If you come with me, Grace, you come as a free woman. Your life, your terms. And in that moment, between thunder's roar and her father's scowl, she felt the faint stir of hope, foreign, fragile, precious. She walked toward Caleb, her heartbeat loud in her ears. She extended her hand slowly, uncertainly. He looked at it with a hint of surprise, then gently wrapped his rough, warm fingers around hers. Behind her, the house stayed silent. Ahead of her, the storm raged. But for the first time in a long time, Grace felt she could walk into it without fear, because she was choosing her own path, and she wasn't walking it alone.